There it is. And we're live again. And it's Chris, your favorite coach, your favorite host, all the things you have that are favorite. If you don't have a favorite yet, maybe it'll be me, who knows? But here we are. And I'm excited today because we have Mattias Clymer over in Virginia. Now, this guy's got a lot of things that he's up to. I'm really excited to talk to him. And one thing is, we were just talking about, he's always on the other side of being interviewed. So this is the first time you're saying you're kind of on the receiving end of being questioned.
Yeah, I know. It's weird. I'm in the hot seat. And I'm all pumped up from that music, man. The intro music made me want to do some burpees or something. Felt like I was back in the gym.
How was that cold plunge? You said you had to take a cold plunge to kind of.
I didn't do it. I wussed out. We did convert an ice freezer, like a chest freezer, into a cold plunge, which we have in our unfinished space in the basement next to a sauna. And our life has been hectic here recently, so I kind of fell out of the habit. But I was getting up in the morning and trying to get a 3-minute cold plunge in, first thing to kind of get me firing on all cylinders. But yeah, we'll get back in there soon.
That's awesome. So tell us, let's go down this journey about how you kind of got into real estate investing and your journey into real estate as a whole. I mean, it's I got into real estate sales because I was attracted to it as an investor because I understood it, and I ended up in sales and brokerage and all that stuff. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I got into, well, let's just start at the beginning. Okay. So my wife and I fell madly in love with a woman that was way better than I deserved. And I wasn't too worried about everything, like finances and everything. And then we decided to add up all of our student loans, actually in the airport on the way back from our honeymoon in Cancun. She had over $100,000 in debt and I had about 20. And at that time I had kind of been like looking for that, what am I going to do with my life? How am I going to like really get serious? And, at one point I picked up Dave Ramsey's Total Money Makeover. So debt was this like big evil thing to me. Right. And I was like, we got to take this on. So we got home and got serious. This wasn't like a complete surprise. She knew that this was kind of in the works. We had already had an argument about her buying a brand new car, even though we weren't married yet. It was, silly stuff. But anyway, we got home and we got after it. We were both making we made about $60,000 together. We had just bought a house. And we, both decided to get some side hustles. So I got my real estate license. I thought the process was a lot of fun with, the agent I worked with. It kind of triggered a lot of the like entrepreneurial stuff that has been within me forever. That it just got me excited. So I was like, let's do this. I want to get my real estate license. She was doing therapy stuff at an organization, and then she took on private clients on the side. So we both worked extra. We worked a lot. We paid off all that debt in 3 years. And
just from side hustle.
Yeah, I mean, together when we just kind of poured everything we could into it. We were, we weren't going out. We had a restaurant budget of, it was, I think, $50 a month.
Oh,
an alcohol budget of $30 a month.
And getting a Corona. I mean,
it was tight. And honestly, we spent about $150 a month on groceries as well. So we were locked in. We were doing everything we could. And I don't regret it. Like, I think I've kind of graduated from that as far as like the Dave Ramsey methodology. Like, I think there's a lot more complexity you can get into. Debt in real estate is an amazing thing. So I don't necessarily, subscribe to everything he says anymore, but it was a really good thing for us at the time. And we look back at it, like we had a lot of fun. We were connected. We were like together going towards a goal. So it was good times.
Sometimes those best moments are in the beginning when you're kind of like sleeping on an air mattress, thinking about, man, we got to pay off the student loans. We can't buy furniture yet. And we've got that $50 budget. Sometimes we miss those. And it's good that you kind of still, you are grateful and have gratitude for that. Well, I mean, that's huge. So you paid off all your debt. I mean, you were making $60,000 a year collectively. You did it. And then at some point, you got interested in real estate brokerage. You had fun in that process, and it was a side hustle at first. And so how'd you break into becoming an investor, and what advice would you give agents who want to transition into becoming investors themselves?
Yeah, so we bought a second house. We bought to live in, and we kept our first, and that was our first rental. And the biggest thing that we screwed up there was we did get a home equity line of credit on that first one before we left.
Mm,
Once we got out of it, we could tap into less of the equity, and it was going to be we had to get like a relock instead of a HELOC, and so basically we had to pay interest and principal payments every month instead of just interest payments. Which if you're doing flips, if you're doing short-term things with that equity, which is what I usually use it for, it's nice to just have interest-only payments to keep the expenses lower, and then you refinance it out into a
mm,
long-term mortgage, or you sell it as a flip. So yeah, so I was full-time real estate agent at this time, and yeah, getting into investing. So that was our first rental property. Um, we ended up getting another HELOC on our new house, and we got a pretty good deal on that house. So we tapped into a good amount of equity right off the bat, and the two different equity lines of credits enabled us to have enough money to start looking at flips. And the next part of that is having the courage to take on a flip. I was also running an investment club, not a formal one necessarily, just kind of like I had this idea of like, it'd be a lot of fun to have people, guest speakers that I know in the community, come talk to us over a beer. We
mm,
can just be at a brewery to have a conversation. And then I had another agent in my firm doing a more formal one that we kind of combined forces. And anyway, we ended up, a wholesaler came to our Christmas party. I was like, hey, I got a property I want to wholesale. Is anybody interested? And I was like, yes. And I showed up. I was scared. The house was not that bad. I mean, it did have a roof leak, so like the insulation was hanging down from the ceilings. The stone foundation had some areas crumbling, which all that stuff freaked me out. But we actually had a home inspection, and I brought in another coworker that flips houses. And he's like, this is a great deal. Like, we got it for $90,000. Like, this is a great deal. You need to get it. So 5-bedroom, 2-bath house. We put in about $60,000 of work, and then we sold it for like 240. And so the funny story about that is that when we were about to buy it, Erica was about to go. We had a scheduled C-section like in like a week when I was ready to put this thing under contract. And she was ready to have the second kid, and she's like, this is not the time that we're going to jump in. Like, I think often when people are about to have a kid, they nest, they make everything comfortable, and this is the opposite of that. And she was like, what are you doing to me?
the anti-nest.
Yes. But she's, over the years, like, I think she's like kind of gotten more and more comfortable with like kind of letting me go and like do those kind of things. And she took a leap of faith and let me do it. We made a great profit on it. And so like, she's thankful for it. It actually paid for our kitchen remodel in our new house, which she was very thankful for as well. So that was kind of the start.
That's awesome. And I mean, how do you mentioned, like about you're doing flips, you also keep things in a portfolio, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you determine what's your, like, how do you evaluate whether a property belongs in your rental portfolio or is better suited as a flip? Well, like, what's your kind of criteria around that?
Yeah. So I think it's location is the number one thing in real estate, right?
Sure.
So, I mean, you need to think about that. You need to make the numbers work, of course. Like, it's got a cash flow. You can't just love the property. We're currently actually taking on a property. So we've bird properties multiple times, and that's been the bulk of our portfolio. So that's basically, instead of renovating a house and selling it and getting the equity you've created, it's renovating the house and refinancing it and getting that equity as your like down payment, basically. So you, at the end of the day, if you do it right, you've renovated a house and you get all the cash out that you put into it. So you basically have a house for free.
Yeah.
You had to do the work, etc. But so anyway, we've gotten multiple properties that way. And the current one we're doing like that, we do love. It's a great location. It's a bit of a stretch cash flow rise because of the interest rates right now. But still a great deal. And so we're making that into a midterm rental. So we've had to get a little bit of creative with the process. So we're setting up furniture now for it. We're just taking the plunge and, investing all that money into the furniture, et cetera. in a hopes that it will perform well. It's a bit of a leap of faith, but it's also an exciting one. So we're looking forward to it.
That's awesome. Sounds like a lot of fun. It's always those leaps of faith. I mean, it keeps us on our toes. It makes things interesting, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, you've got this top producing real estate team now, and it's growing. You're building the team as we speak. And what would you say up until this point? What systems or habits helped you scale without burning out?
Ooh, that's a good question.
I'm full of those.
Honestly, I think the biggest, most important thing for me is to get into the gym. It just resets my brain. It makes me de-stress. That's been such a crucial piece of my like mental stability. There's been times where like there's somebody I need to get back to, and I'm like, I can't touch them. I can't talk to them until I go into the gym. And then I'll be like, in a better place, and I can respond professionally, etc. That's definitely been a great thing. Another thing is taking on delegation, like learning how to do that. Learning how to learn from others, like with working with you, Chris. Like I think that's a big thing too, is just taking learning how to there's people that have done it before. And so why, slam your head against the wall and try to reinvent the wheel if you can learn from others. So that can be through books, that can be through coaching, that can be through masterminds. All that stuff is highly recommended. And then leveraging is another big piece that is still an ongoing process. Have a virtual assistant now that is, whatever I can train him to do, I do. And then with my podcast, getting the editing, getting that production piece of it off of my plate was huge. So as it stands now, like a lot of people wonder how I can do everything that I do. And with the podcast, at least now I just show up to record.
Yeah.
I have somebody that is my VA is vetting guests. They're going through their past episodes. They're looking at popular episodes and finding really good guests for me and booking them.
That's how we met.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, my VA invited you.
It'd be good for this, and I checked it out, and it was good. But that's pretty leveraged. I mean, would you say that that's? Because we all get involved in a lot of things, then you got that off your plate, and then you kind of went back into production and focusing on building your real estate sales team and your investment business and whatnot. So that's kind of pretty leveraged. So does that kind of tickle you pink and make you want to do that in all the aspects of your life?
Yeah. I mean, to get that fully off my plate where I just have to show up and record, that's the high dollar value thing that I can do in the podcast, right? Is I can show up and record. It's got to be me, right? I can't outsource that part. But nobody really thinks about what it takes to get that podcast then on the air and get it to all the different platforms and soon to get it on as a blog and get it out as a newsletter. People don't think about the work or care about how that was done. But to show up is important. So you got to think about how you can apply that to your different areas of life. So if you're in a real estate sales transaction, where do you need to be? Our market's a smaller market. It's a tertiary market. And we have not had showing time really take over, for example. And I was having this debate with another agent about how they were saying, what's the point of showing time? We get paid a lot of money. Why it's not that much work to set up showings, for my clients. I'm saying that's true. It's not that much work, but I don't think that's what they see as value. Like they don't care. In fact, they probably prefer to get notified about showings faster than to have to wait for you to be able to respond and go back and forth 9 times with them and the agent to figure out a time that works. So we had that argument, and I was saying, instead, I'm going to be focusing my time on getting the house ready before we hit the market. So if I'm staging, I'm coordinating all these contractors, getting the house to be, top value. They're going to find that to be, much higher value than if I, simply am coordinating the showings. I just don't think that's a high value task that we can provide for our clients.
And it's all how you, I talked to so many real estate agents that, when I had my office, a big thing was solo agents that were top producing agents that couldn't grow because they had this thing. Everybody wants to deal with me. I'm available 24/7 on my phone. They want to be able to call me, talk to me, want me to show the houses, want me to do everything. And I'm like, well, it's all how you present it. It's all it's all how you present it to your seller. So, you know, you don't want to be misleading, but if you present it up front, like, hey, I've got this team of really talented people. Here's how I'm leveraged. Here's what you can count on. And then you deliver. I mean, that's huge because you've got now, you've got this design element now you're talking about, like the staging and design services, and how'd that evolve, and what role does it create the creativity play in your business model now?
Well, that's been the beauty of being an investor as well. I do have a person that's taking that on, the design, the staging, in my team. However, I have been doing this with flips and renovations of houses for a while. So I have this, laundry list of contractors and experience about kind of seeing how a property could become. Like, I mean, the first time you've ever seen a house that's not been painted in 30 years get painted and you see the transformation,
Sure.
like you start understanding like how
I
these
get
things
it.
can give you tons of value for not that much money.
Sure.
And so just having that experience and like, combining all those things. And when you go through a house and be like, okay, for example, we just renovated a house. We did refinish the floors and did touch-up paint, because it would have been the way the house was painted currently, it was going to be more expensive to paint. And we decided just to touch up paint. But anyway, we got this house completely refreshed for $7,500. And it sold for $100,000 more than asking price. So like, it's just like, that's the kind of value you can provide. That's going to give people, they're going to care a lot more about that than like,
I hope everybody heard that, you sold 100,000 over asking price.
Yeah. 20% over asking price. Now that's an outlier. That's not going to be every house, but, I strongly believe the work that we did to get it ready for the market enabled that to happen more, right? Like, I mean, it may have happened to a certain degree anyway, but I think that, we really just put the finishing touches on it to really push it over the edge.
Yeah, it makes a difference. It's because sometimes, and back when I was in sales, it's been a while. You'd have a seller that would real quickly want to drop the price $10,000, yet they were apprehensive to put $2,000 into painting, staging, doing some curb appeal stuff. And it was always that question, like, hey, if instead of dropping the price $10,000, if we could drop two to $3,000 into some staging recommendations and do some things there, and maybe offer an extra 0.5% to the agent that sells it within the next 2 weeks. Do you think that might get you more activity? Here, look, the proof is in the pudding. And sometimes that's where the difference is between a good real estate consultant and just like a mediocre agent. And I think when the market is hot, pricing is not so important. Staging is not so important. You put a sign in the yard, you throw it up in the MLS, and that sucker sells, right? And every other person has a real estate license, and people are selling houses. And all of a sudden, the market changes a little bit. It needs someone more talented like yourself that has the knowledge and the know-how of staging and pricing strategically. And I know these are things that are really important to you as an investor and a seller yourself.
Yeah, totally. And I always tell clients that there are really 3 things that you can control in selling your house. We got price, we got condition, and we have marketing. And so my goal is to give you the best marketing possible. And if we're not getting a sale in the first couple days, or hopefully less than a week, we got to look at what the cause there is. Is it condition? Is it price? And often one thing I always come back to, or one thing I say to them a lot, is that if we sold this house for $1, if we listed it for $1, we'd have 100 offers in 2 days, and it would sell way above $1, obviously. If we listed it for $1 million more than it's worth, it would take 30 years to sell, maybe. And so in between there somewhere is a price that's going to make sense that is going to bring a buyer. And if we're not there now, it's either going to be the condition or it's going to be the price that needs to be adjusted.
That's right. And and as a seller, they have control over access to the house and how it shows and condition and things like that. You have control as the agent over the marketing. You don't have control over what buyers are offering, but you're looking to generate the best buyer possible. And that's all we can do. I always tell them, it's like you pull out a dollar bill and say, how much are you willing to give me for this dollar? Would you give me $1.10 for this dollar? No. Like, what about this nice brand new shiny dollar? It's brand new, never been used, never been in anybody's pocket. Would you give me $1.10 for this one? No, why not? Oh, because it's still worth $1. So I don't care about your gold faucets and your marble countertop, right? It's just kind of, that's what it is. But there are things that make a huge difference. All things equal, for $1, if I was going to offer you a crumpled up dollar or a crispy dollar, and I was charging $1 for both of them, which one would you take? The one that's in better condition. That's it. So it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get. I used to love in Queens. I used to get these old school Italians. Look, I did marble. Nice. People are going to pay for this, and I'm like, nobody's going to pay for this. Nobody wants this anymore. You wanted it. I'm sorry, but they're probably going to change it now. Knowing that. Let's talk about what the property is really worth. It's a funny thing. I know, but just thank goodness there's people like you that are still bold enough to have these conversations. My buddy posted the other day about something. He's like, any agent that tells you that your first offer is going to be your best offer, there's so many of these real estate isms that people get used to hearing and throwing out there, which in this market, is not always the case. Look at this house. It sold for $100,000 over asking price. That wasn't necessarily the first offer. It's not always the best offer, right? It's
right.
You've got to be more strategic with the marketing and the pricing these days than ever before.
Yeah. Strategy. Sorry, go ahead. I was just going to say the strategy is very key. In this listing and then a couple others that I have, it's gotten out a little bit. Other people have heard of that the house is coming up for sale, and to get the listing agreement together, we had to set a price. However, that's months ago, and right now, I'm not telling you what the price is because I want to get a pulse of the market first of all.
Sure.
I want to see what the finished result looks like once we're done with all the work and staging. And then we get that price perfect so that we're going to get activity. We're going to have hopefully multiple offers. And then there are some times where you're like, okay, we can't count in this part of the market. We can't count on multiple offers coming in. So we're going to price it a little bit higher. And that in that circumstance, we may get, that first offer that is asking price. And I just had one that had, we pushed the price about $15,000 more than it should have been to try to achieve their goals. We had 2 showings. We got lucky. We only got 1 offer from the 2 showings. And so that market just is different. We're not going to have 40 showings and 10 offers. And that's just the way it is. So, it just kind of depends on your hyper local, market, what the best strategy is.
Real estate's one of the truly local businesses where it's not something that could be done on the internet or sold as a digital product, or you're providing a service from across the country. Look, you've got somebody that wants to move to San Francisco. By all means, you can refer them to a hyper local strategist over there, right? That's I appreciate it so much for that it's such a local. That's such a local thing. Talk to us about your podcast. About, are these things your REI Agent podcast? How has it helped you grow your brand and network? What made you start it?
Okay, so the reason to start it is to kind of expand myself, to be more than just my sales career. To be completely honest, I think that it started when part of the dream of being an entrepreneur and part of the dream of why we do this is that we want freedom. We want flexibility of time. At least that's one of the motivations I have.
Sure.
However, once you get into real estate sales, you can choose what 16 hours a day you want to work, right? It's so free. You don't have one boss, you have 30. But anyway, so I realized that, to get kind of to a place that I wanted to be, I want to take my kids overseas for a year. And realizing that, me just leaving my business, my sales business will put me back, not just the year I'm gone, but years to come. And that I needed to grow a little bit bigger and expand myself a little bit more. So the REI Agent is just, a thought leadership program or a platform, writing a book that, if I could find the time, I could finish off a second draft and start promoting that. But it's been so awesome to talk to people all across the country. I get a pulse on what's happening all across the country in the real estate market. I get a pulse, or I get ideas, strategies from investors and from other agents that I can apply in my business. It hasn't necessarily, I'm not really putting it out there for my clients to see at this stage. I think it might confuse them a little bit as to what I'm all about.
Okay.
But it gives me a lot of information that I can use then to help them, to better serve them. And I think there's ways that I can then niche out this skill that I'm honing to, do more hyper local things that I think people around here would be more interested in. But, when I work with investor clients, those kind of things, like I have now interviewed a ton of accountants. I've interviewed a ton of attorneys. I've interviewed a ton of, investors in general. And I can give them, without being, an accountant or an attorney, I can give them pretty good ideas or questions to ask those actual professionals to get them in a really good position. So I have a past doctor client that we just met. He's about to pay off all his student loans, and he's going to do it on his birthday here in May. And he's like, I need to turn that funnel now. I need to turn that stream that was blasting student loans out of the way into real estate investing. And because I have this knowledge set now from interviewing and just being interested in investing, I can tell him, you need to get an Airbnb. You need to get that real estate professional status so that you can then offset your income, your high income, through things like syndications or through other investment vehicles. So it's just, that kind of knowledge you can really, and, those kind of people too, I share more about the REI podcast and what I'm doing there because it kind of helps build up the validity of what I'm telling them. Like they can see me as more as an expert.
So it's a learning platform for you as well. You're learning. You're a consummate. And that's one of the things I appreciate you. We're kind of cut from the same cloth that way. School's never out for the motivated. We're always learning, and you're right up there as well. So you're learning a tremendous amount from these things. And you said something interesting. You said something interesting. You have not exposed it to your clientele yet. You're putting it on your social media. I've seen it.
Separate accounts for the most part. I have purposely
promoting it to them.
Yeah, I did put it out there a couple of times, and so I don't think it's necessarily hidden, but I'm not actively promoting it to the local market because I think it's really more out there for people that are real estate agents or investors. And so if the people locally are, it would fit. But if they just want to sell their house, it might just kind of confuse them as to what I'm doing.
I get you. And maybe there's, and we talked about you having this live event coming up, this festival, and doing a pop-up podcast over there. I think it's so valuable to talk to your clients and customers, even people that you'd like to do business with. And my business is all business to business, and that's what I do here. I just talk to other business people and a lot in the real estate business, other industries. And I learn so much, and it's amazing to hear people's stories. So, I really appreciate what you're doing, and it's great that you have to just show up and record. If I ask you, what's one conversation on your podcast that really stuck with you, and why?
Yeah, the first one that comes to mind for sure is Mike Keating.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Keating is out of the Twin Cities. He's a developer. He develops apartment buildings. Wow. And he has streamlined the process so much. So he's basically taken the thought of an assembly line and applied it to real estate development. And he was able to cut his costs or make it more efficient, right? The timeline basically is shrunk also by doing this. They just go down unit by unit and finish it. That they were able to basically BRRRR a new development where they've done stuff at a 70% of the cost. And so they get 100% financing to do the work, which is amazing. And then he goes on to also talk about his mindset and philosophy of hiring and delegating, and how he has wants to pay a premium for the best. And he's done that from the ground up. He's got in-house everything from, concrete to electrician to property management. All that stuff is in-house, and he's paying everybody the most competitive, best rates and perks that you can get.
You have the best people, I would imagine.
Yeah. Very, very sought after people, but he was a very open and honest person as well. So it was a really good conversation that Eric and I really enjoyed.
Awesome. I love it. And let's switch gears. You've got all this stuff going on. So I know you and Eric are doing this podcast together. How do you guys balance entrepreneurship, marriage, raising a family without losing your minds?
It's really hard. It could be really hard. I think with anything you want to succeed at, you have to be intentional about it. And I think that's the key. So I've been practicing. I have this mastermind group that is basically an accountability group as well.
Okay.
That has made me focus, have intentional goals, where I pick out 3 areas of my life that I want to be most focused in. And so relationship with my spouse, relationship with my kids has been a big part of it. So, having intentional dates that I'm tracking, having intentional quality time is good. Building in things like every week we're going to have a meeting to schedule, because just the lack of the ability not to even communicate with each other when there's kids around is just insane. But for the kids, then also having, at least 10, 15 minutes of, undistracted, undivided focus time with them, at least 5 days a week, is things that I track. And then, we've also done the gym together before, the meniscus tear surgery thing. We do the gym together, which is a really bonding thing as well. We always have something we can talk about. That's been good. And also just, again, it clears the mind. It's a good stress relief.
Yeah. Because she's in the mental health industry.
Yeah. She's a licensed therapist.
Exactly. So, you mentioned before, it's come up a few times about the gym and how therapeutic it is for you and stuff like that. What role does mental health and wellness play in your decision making as a business owner?
Yeah, well, I think at the end of the day, if you're not happy, if you're not enjoying life, what's the point? And
What
so,
is the point? If you're not enjoying life, you're not having fun.
Yeah, so I think that's kind of the ultimate goal, and it's a good thing. You can get lost in the weeds, right? I mean, you can get lost in everything that has to be done, but if you're not intentionally, like enjoying yourself, enjoying your family, spending time with them, planning a year in Spain with your family. I mean, that's just kind of, you got to have that why, you got to have that intentionality where you are focused on what you think is the most important. You got to design your life, not just have it happen to you.
A life by design, not by default. Yeah, that's huge. And I think most people, particularly when you get to around my age, there's a lot of people that, that they talk about that midlife crisis, people looking around. I'm watching this show now on Apple TV called Your Friends and Neighbors, and this guy's he works for a hedge fund. He's making millions of dollars and he gets fired. His wife leaves him for his best friend. And all of a sudden he's like, what the hell life am I living? And he's at this party looking around and everyone's talking about some rare scotch that they drank one time that you can never get again. And they're comparing watches. And he's like, what's this all for? Right. So everybody's just kind of like, this is the life that they're hanging on to. And that's such great advice. I mean, if you could rewind, sometimes if you could rewind and give yourself some kind of advice, if you talk to your 18-year-old self again, or, what advice you'd give to a young person looking to get into this, looking to get into entrepreneurship, or that's maybe apprehensive or feels stuck, what would you tell them?
Am I allowed to curse? Is that allowed?
Yeah, you can say whatever you want, man. This is unfiltered. I do these things. I don't give questions ahead of time. And that's why, because magic happens in the moment.
Okay, so at one point, when I think I was trying to do home projects and I was kind of scared of doing things when I was a first homeowner. A guy once looked at me and just said, he said, boy, you can't be afraid to fuck things up. And
that's right.
I think like I think a lot of times people look at getting into a real estate investment as a zero sum thing. Like you're going to spend $300,000 on it and it could all be gone. It's an insane amount of money. Yeah. But it's never the case. And you can't be afraid to scrape your knees. You just have to get in there and do it. The younger you are, the better, the more time you have to recover. So it's a great time to take some risks. And I mean, don't be dumb. Seek out other people to help you for sure. But yeah, I wish I would have gotten into it a little bit earlier. I think that I always had this entrepreneurial spirit. But I don't think I really got serious with it until I was married. I had somebody that maybe made me more serious and focused on.
Wait, hold on. Wait a second. Now other people are counting on me.
Yeah. I mean, I
got to have more debt than you did. So
yeah.
At least it
It was
wasn't the
good
other way
memory.
around. Yeah, probably better up that way. I like, I always say that too. It's like, you're like, don't be afraid to fuck things up. I used to tell new agents, how many different ways are you willing to discover that don't work? And they're like, huh? And I'm like, how many ways, how many things are you willing to discover that don't work? How long are you willing to do it for? Because that really is the test of time, isn't it? I mean, what kinds of rituals and routines right now are helping you stay grounded when things get hectic? We got the gym.
The gym for sure. Yeah. Yeah, I think, in an ideal week, I would have time blocking. So really, when things were less hectic, I was, carving out 5 hours so I could work on the book. If I could get a good 4 or 5 hour chunk of time, and I often had to have a backup time because, there's going to be something that comes up. I had a tenant slip on some ice and was threatening to sue me at one point, and that threw off my writing block time because I couldn't focus on writing. So I had another backup time on there. But yeah, I think like, client follow up, like, so like, have a contract to closing time if you're doing that, where you can kind of touch base with your contracts and make sure that they're abreast of everything that's happening in the contract, and that you're updating your checklist so you can see, you have a good pulse of everything that's coming up in the week. And that way you're being proactive with your communication. You're not, waiting for them to say, hey, what's going on? And then, same with your listing process. So now I've developed this big checklist where I go through, I'm putting together the schedule of like, all the different updates and things. Cause I had like 9 listings like coming at me at the same time. It was stressing me out, about this, cause we talked about this. But putting it all down on paper, and then I can be like, okay, this is happening at this time, this is happening at this time, and checking it and changing it weekly, so that you have that designated time to do it, and it's not just kind of floating out there in your head.
Yeah. So just kind of being like, it's part of your ritual, just being on purpose with your calendar, what you're choosing to dedicate your time to, and how you spend your time, making sure the important stuff gets done.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
Good, well, it's good that you have discipline to do that. Let me ask you this about, real estate agents. You have a big audience of real estate agents. So do I. If you can give one message to every agent who's feeling stuck or overwhelmed right now, what would it be?
Be careful to not get shiny object syndrome. I think going back to the basics, and working the people that well, that trust you, and just being a good friend to them, not like seeking business referrals, like, hey, I want a referral. Like, you don't need to do that. But just kind of connecting to everybody and just seeing what they're up to in their life, that you have in your database, that you have in your sphere, that you've worked with before, that are your friends, that your family, is great. And it's probably, taking people like that out to lunch is probably money better spent than some of the other shiny object things that you can spend money on. There's a lot of people trying to take your money in this business.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad you said that, because it's, I work with a lot of top agents around the country that kind of hit ceilings, and it's a lot of solo agents that are ready to build a team, or people with dysfunctional teams. And without fail, when you talk about going back to the basics, the biggest opportunity I always see is like, well, okay, what kind of return are you getting from your Met database? The people that the people that like you, that know you. Like, what do you mean? Well, how many people are in your database? How many of those people know you by name and know what you do? And are you getting a 10 to 15% return on that? Overwhelmingly, the answer is no. I had a client, and she put a list of like 78 past clients, and she brought him to the next meeting. And I said, here's what you're going to do with them. I'm not going to say her name, but she's a very good agent. And she's like, they don't want to hear from me. My past clients don't want to hear from me. And I'm like, you're incorrect. I said, just do this week. And a few days in, she was shooting me text messages. I can't believe that they were happy to hear from me. And where have I been? And somebody wants to sell, and all these stuff started happening. She's like, I couldn't believe it. And there's like a big block around that. And just kind of getting back into the basics. You're saying, start with the people you know. The people you know, the people that they know that you don't know yet, right? And that's what we're working on, is kind of like that invisible layer of people that 1 degree away. Because I would always say most of my business came from people that knew somebody that I knew, not directly from the people that I knew, but from people that knew them. right? And so how can we, and knowing that, how can we expand that and do that at a higher level? And I think that's great. I think that's great advice. And I'm so glad you said it, because, so many people will be like, you got to, you got to be on social media more. No.
Yeah, no, I think like, like you probably remember some random thing from the contract or the process you did with them, or just the relationship you have with them,
Sure.
and kind of chatting with them about that, like,
Mhm.
and kind of updating or just checking in with their lives, like what's happening in their lives. Even if you don't even talk about real estate at all, they're going to be thinking about you the next time they hear about somebody wanting to sell or buy a house. And you never know where
Yeah.
that will lead.
You don't. And, I used to have my CRM open when I was making my calls, and whatever they said, I took a note. I had my headset phone. I was taking notes, and I'd be like, next time I talked to him, I said, "Hey, last time we spoke, your dog was sick. How's he feeling?" And people are like,
Yeah.
"Oh, and if you look, and I used to teach classes to my agents in my class, and I show my database and all these crazy notes that I had and things you wrote that down. You wrote that down. I'm like, yeah, I want to make sure I'm tracking with them. I mean, and now with AI, different conversation, it makes it super easy. I mean, all my coaching calls used to be manually taking notes. Now I just click a button, So what do you got? What is that?
This is Plod, where I can hold this and record any conversation that I have, and it will summarize it. And you could throw that into your CRM. And I just imagine the future of, like, I still think that you need that personal touch.
Yes.
But I can imagine, like, AI assisted follow-ups or AI assisted check-ins, if you have a huge data set of like things that you've already talked about, being pretty wild.
Listen, you're such a nerd. I love it. I love you're one of the people I can nerd out on, man. That's kind of, we can do a whole other thing on all this like nerdy tech stuff that we got going on. Yeah, this is fascinating, but that thing is really cool. I got to get one of those. That's cool, man. I love what you've got going on. Is there anything that I'm not asking you that you want to share with the world, or at least the people that are going to hear this, that you want to end with today, you want to close with?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm just going to harp on that. Live intentionally and design your life. Do a vision board. If you are in a relationship, do it with them. Look at what you think you want your life to be in 5 years, and just have that systemized down. Break that down into yearly things. Break that down into monthly, quarterly things, and just take steps towards it, because you never know where you're going to be, or you're not going to get there if you're not, planning and guiding your life to where it is. And, you don't want to feel stuck. That's what this is all about, is living a dream life, and having an amazing life.
Wise words. And I mean, 5 years from now, you're planning on being in a different country. So
yeah. And
awesome.
you know what? People like my wife would always be like, "Why are you saying this stuff out loud? Like, why do you talk about this stuff out loud?" I'm like, well, now I have all these people that are going to be expecting me to do it.
Yeah.
Like, I got to make it happen.
Yeah, it becomes real that way. When you put it out there into the world, it becomes real. That's a great thing. And I think you'll have it. You're super focused, but what the important thing is, I think that we can see today, is that you're having a great time doing it, enjoying the journey. Though you're planning for someday and you're building towards this big dreams and goals, you're not torturing yourself along the way. I mean, you're putting up with a small amount of torture, but you're enjoying it. You're enjoying the journey. I think that's so important, to just make sure that we're not doing it for someday. We're working towards someday, but we're also have that sweet spot of really enjoying it right now. And Jim Rohn said that the sweet spot of living and happiness and experiencing happiness is to be both ambitious and content at the same time. And so often, so many ambitious people are never content. We know people like that.
Yeah.
And then we know a lot of content people that are not ambitious at all. And we're like, man, I could never be doing that and being stuck in a cubicle at my 9 to 5 for 30 years, happy. And, the ambitious people that are never content, I mean, they look miserable all the time. What's next? Right. So that's awesome. I tip my hat to you. Congratulations. Kudos. And you had a good time today?
I did. Yeah, this is great. It's good to be on the other side.
Punch, huh? Yeah, isn't it fun? Isn't it fun? Yeah, that's good. So hopefully we'll do it again sometime, and we'll see everybody out there. If you guys want to get in touch with Mattias, he's pretty easy to find. You're all over social media there, and the REI podcast is looking for wonderful guests. So if you've got something to share in real estate investing, that'd be a cool thing. But anyway, until we see you guys, Peace out, everybody. Thanks, Mattias. Appreciate you.
See y'all.
Bye.